Hello, once again, everybody. My book, The Unexpected Way That a Stroke Became the Best Thing That Happened, a book which is about recovery after stroke, is now available for purchase on Amazon. In the book, you will find chapters on mindset, the brain that resides in your heart. Yes, the brain that resides in your heart, as well as the brain that resides in your gut. That's it, your gut brain. You will also learn about the benefits and downsides of neuroplasticity. You will learn about the benefits of getting better sleep. You'll find out about the food you should be avoiding after stroke. You will find out about the amazing benefits you get from the smallest amount of exercise. And I'm talking about small amounts of exercise. And I'm talking about it doesn't matter whether you're able to walk, run, move your left side, move your right side. It doesn't matter. The smallest amount of exercise, even sitting, is very, very beneficial. You will learn about following your heart's desires and how that can lead to amazing things in your life. And you will also learn about the amazing and positive benefits you get from surrounding yourself with the right people in your recovery. And you may even stumble across your life's purpose. If you are interested in checking out the book and you want some more information, go to recoveryafterstroke.com/book to learn more. Now, this is episode 285, and my guest today is Abdul Wahed Hassan, who experienced an ischemic stroke in 2018 caused by a previously undiagnosed genetic condition called Factor V Leiden when he was just 32 years of age. Oh man, there are way too many ways for people to experience a stroke. Abdul Wahed Hassan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. Tell me a little bit about what happened to you.
In 2018, April 17, I would say. Can't remember if it was 17 or 18, but it was in April, by end of April, about 2 months after my birthday. I was working and living in Dubai, UAE. Had my own business, small startup. A friend of mine called me, asked me to go out for dinner. Remember, it was a famous chain, Chili's, I believe. Had my dinner, went back home, went to sleep. I was living in my friend's apartment because at that time I left my previous job that I was doing. I was working in construction. So I went back home and just decided to sleep and wake up early for the next day to go to work to my office. Remember waking up, I believe I talked to my mom. She was in Canada for a visit, visit her parents, her family, with my dad, and my brother lives up there. I was food poisoned when she called me. I was in Dubai, spent most of my time drinking, smoking, eating during the free time, if not doing sports. So I had some diarrhea and was thrown up. Went to the rush to the toilet, threw up, went back, took a nap, and went back up. Decided to see if I can just probably try to feel better, try to throw up again, or get myself comfortable. Just sat down in the toilet. Everything was fine. I stood up and I was extremely exhausted and tired. I was like, damn, like this is really it hit me hard. Must be a bad bug. I wasn't very much able to. I was, I wasn't, I was out of balance. Put it that way. So I
Mhm.
decided to sleep, like rest on the hallway between the toilet and the bedroom. Laid down there. Then I remembered that I left the keys on the doormat for the cleaning lady to come in and clean the house that day. She comes once a week. Just I'm like, you know what? Maybe when she comes in, just tell her to clean around. I'll just stand up and just go back to bed and she can clean the rest of the apartment. I did hear the doorbell ringing and she's knocking the door. I wasn't able to do anything much. I decided just to like screw it, just sleep. She'll walk in, the keys are under the doormat. She knows the drill. So I wanted to yell to open the door to tell her that the keys are under the doormat. I could not hear my own voice. I remember opening my mouth and trying to yell and scream. I remember I was drooling. I believe I was drooling because I was itchy, so I felt it was wet. I wasn't sure if I was having a stroke or not. I mean, if I was having a seizure, because when you have a seizure, later on I discovered what seizure feels like. I was able to explain it. It was like a white noise. Like I can't hear anything. It's like when it's dark, you have that white noise. It was pretty much something similar. She walked in. She saw me on the ground. She's like, "Sir, are you okay? Are you drunk?" I'm like, "No, I'm just tired. Just clean the house, and when you finish and come to the toilet, I'll just move out of your way." She's like, "It's okay, sir. I'll help you." Like about 190 kilograms. I was out of shape. I was not in good condition.
190 kilograms or 109.
Sorry, I would say about 140
Okay.
because right now I'm 120.
Right.
She's like, "Sir, I can't move you. I have to call security to help you out." I'm like, "Okay, sure, why not? They can help me. Why not?" They came in, two gentlemen, the building security. They walked in. They're like, "Sir, we can't. Did you drink too much?" I'm like, "No, I didn't drink. I just went to the toilet, threw up, and everything was fine. I just felt very tired. Just let me sleep. Come back later." Like, "No, we can't leave it like this." Both of these security guys were not able to lift me up to put me on bed. I asked them to put me on bed. They actually lifted me up a little bit off the ground, but I wasn't able to move my knees and my legs. They put me back on the ground. They're like, "We have to call ambulance." I'm like, "Okay." Before they actually call the ambulance, they called two of my friends. I had emergency contact in the building. One of my friend I was over the phone. He's like, "Hey man, you sure you're okay?" I'm like, "Yeah man, I just want to sleep it off. I'm just tired." It's a buddy of mine. Go out, drink too much together, and he knows like when I'm okay, I'm not okay. On a drunk level, not medical level. I was like, "Okay man, whatever you want." They called my other friend. He came over to my apartment. He was my partner in a job at my company as well at that time. Started talk me into going to the hospital. I'm like, "Hey man, it's okay." He's like, "Hey man, your face is not right." When he said that, it's when it triggered me. I was like, "You know what? Okay." The ambulance came in, started asking me too many questions. Started asking, doing drugs. Did I drink? I was very straightforward. I'm like, "No, I just went to the toilet or threw up, a little diarrhea. It's not the first time that it happens. I always get a bug." They got this machine that they roll like a pizza roll slicer with the
Hmm.
pinches on it. See
Uh-huh.
if they asked me if I feel anything on it. They're like, "We're gonna try to pinch you, see if you feel anything." They're like, "Do you feel this?" I'm like, "No." "Do you feel this?" "No." I heard over the radio saying that American adult, possible minor stroke. They're like, "We have to take you to the hospital." I'm like, "Okay." They put me on the stretcher and once they put me under the CT scan, that big round machine, it's when I knew shit hit the fan. I'm like,
Hmm.
something's seriously going on.
And how old were you?
32, right after
32.
my birthday.
So you were lucky that it was the day of the cleaning lady.
Yeah.
That was lucky. Otherwise, you could have been there for days.
Days, yeah, because my friend who I was staying over his apartment, he traveled for vacation with his cousins to Morocco, very far away.
Hmm.
So he probably came back, found me laid down, probably dead or rotten. Nobody knows.
Yeah. Wow. That worked out well. So how long did you spend in the hospital?
At that time, say about 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, not
Mhm.
more than that. My family had to flew in from Canada to see what's going on. My brother at that time was working in Qatar, and there was the sanction on Qatar from the Gulf countries, so it was very hard for him to actually fly directly to Qatar. So he had to fly to another country. I think it was Bahrain or Oman, and then into Dubai.
Uh-huh. And what was the reason for the stroke? What caused it? The underlying reason?
I remember very much that day. Not that day, but that month. At first, they couldn't find out what was the reason for the stroke. One of my friends, because he always knew that my eating habit was not healthy and the way I drink alcohol was very abusive, not healthy. He asked one of the nurses, he's like, that was probably a weekend. He was like, is his cholesterol high? Is that what the reason is? He's like, one of the nurses was like, his cholesterol is not that high to have a stroke.
Um, your weight was 140 kilos, so about 300 pounds. At that weight, had you been at that weight for a long time? Was that your normal weight? Or
No,
was
it was for a while. I would say for about 7 years. I was 7 years in Dubai since I was like probably 21 years old up until I was 38. I was in Dubai since I went to Dubai in 2009 all the way to 2018.
right?
My weight was pretty much just stable. Probably it was less, but with my mild depression and anxiety that I went through that period of time, everything pretty much triggered everything. I was a heavy smoker as well.
Uh-huh. So did you used to use substances and food as a way to try and regulate your anxiety?
Pretty much food, coffee, yes, and then cigarettes.
Uh-huh. So there was a lot of things that you were doing that weren't supporting your health and well-being anyway. But
Yeah,
at
and
32, the stroke was not related to high cholesterol or high blood pressure or anything like that.
not at all. I never had high blood pressure, never had diabetes or any sugar problem.
Hmm.
In fact, I was doing for about a year. I joined a gym in Dubai. It was a boxing gym. Intense cardiotherapy, intense cardio for about 40 minutes, and then another 40 minutes of boxing combination.
Uh,
That was probably the best thing that I went through at that time. And I believe when I started that gym, I stopped smoking cold turkey.
how long had you been without cigarettes?
If you've had a stroke and you're in recovery, you'll know what a scary and confusing time it can be. You're likely to have a lot of questions going through your mind. Like, how long will it take to recover? Will I actually recover? What things should I avoid in case I make matters worse? Doctors will explain things, but obviously you've never had a stroke before. You probably don't know what questions to ask. If this is you, you may be missing out on doing things that could help speed up your recovery. If you're finding yourself in that situation, stop worrying and head to recoveryafterstroke.com, where you can download a guide that will help you. It's called 7 Questions to Ask Your Doctor About Your Stroke. These 7 questions are the ones Bill wished he'd asked when he was recovering from a stroke. They'll not only help you better understand your condition, they'll help you take a more active role in your recovery. Head to the website now, recoveryafterstroke.com, and download the guide. It's free.
Since my stroke or before that.
Before the stroke, how long had it been?
Before the stroke, I was smoking since pretty much in college when I was
Mm.
like probably 19 for about 6 good years. I was on and off, but at the end of it, right before my stroke, I was a heavy smoker. Reach up to a 2 pack of cigarettes a day.
Uh-huh. But then you started the gym?
When I started the gym 2 years before my stroke, I stopped cigarettes. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay. So you weren't smoking for 2 years before the stroke, and then you had the stroke. And then you stayed in hospital. When you left hospital, what was it
When
like?
I left hospital, I did not leave it and I stayed in the country. My parents came. I'm originally from Lebanon. My parents, everyone suggested that I should go to Lebanon from the hospital. It's better treatment. Dubai was not very accommodating to me in my condition
Mhm.
at that time. And I was all alone and didn't have very much financial power to get treatment there and move on there. So my parents decided to take me to Lebanon, to Beirut. There was a physical therapy and a rehab for stroke patients. I was there for about, I would say about month and a half. I would say about good 8 weeks I stayed there.
Mhm.
Did
Did
all kind of tests to see what was going on with me. Couldn't find anything. But there was a paper that said they said we're gonna take a sample of your blood and send it to Europe to see what probably if there's anything wrong there. The paper did say factor V Leiden heterozygote,
which is?
which is the blood clot disorder. But the
So you
doctors didn't take it very serious at that time. They just looked at it and ignored it pretty much. So I left the hospital, and then 6 months after that, I was trying to go through various kinds of rehabilitation. I did go to Germany twice, one for my occupational therapy and one for physical therapy.
Mhm.
Didn't benefit too much because my spasm was too severe. Actually, there was a doctor in Lebanon. When she looked at my condition, she refused to work on me. She's like, your spasm is way too severe. She wasn't able to
What do you mean by
take that
spasm, Abe?
spasm,
Yeah, whereabouts
spasticity,
is that? Spasticity.
yeah, in my arm
Which side, left or right?
left.
And is it still like that now?
It's not as severe as it used to be, but it's definitely gone. Almost, not really. It's still spasm. I get spasticity. I can't move my arm. I haven't moved it since my stroke.
Uh-huh. Okay. And do you feel that the care that you were hoping to get in Dubai wasn't available to you because you weren't a local and also maybe because you didn't have insurance? Why do you feel like there wasn't enough care?
It wasn't my decision at that time in Dubai. I wasn't able to make any decisions on my behalf on myself. So in Lebanon, pretty much my parents tried to assist me with physical rehab and treatments and everything. Up until 9 months after my stroke in Lebanon, I started feeling like an abdominal pain. I remember my cousin came over for a visit, took me out for sushi and came back home, and then suddenly I feel like something wrong with my stomach. Thought it was a bug or a flu or something. Kind of scared me because it reminded me of my stroke in Dubai. It was right after my food poison.
Hmm.
And that pain kind of starts to spread around my chest, especially more to the left side, more to the right side, right under my rib cage, the lower last bone of the rib. It was kind of like sharp pain. It went like that for about 4 days. Start screaming and yelling to a point my parents got scared of the way I start screaming and shouting from the pain. So all what I was able to do was take my medication, which is they gave me like Depakote and other depressive medications and cholesterol medications. That was everything that was on at that time. And they rushed me to the hospital. They did an X-ray to my chest on my chest. They said everything's fine. Went back home. The pain was even worse the next day. Went back to another hospital. And the nurse was sitting there with my mom. And he looked at me and asked me, like, did you stop any medication? I looked at her and I'm like, I don't know. I'm not handling all these things on my own right now. I wasn't like having a stroke. I'm not aware of what's going on with myself and my surrounding.
It's a big problem when you have a stroke and you're trying to be alert and do all the things, but you have cognitive fatigue. You have all sorts of deficits as a result of your stroke. You're not the
Right.
best person to make all the necessary steps and decisions just simply because you've been affected by a stroke.
Yeah, I thought it was something I'm gonna get better within a week or two.
Yeah,
It's like a disease is gonna come and go with a vaccine or something.
yeah,
I was still not into that state of mind of understanding what stroke is and what to do and how it affects you on the long run.
yeah. And then what happened with the pain in your abdomen?
And the nurse gave me a bunch of aspirin. My mom looked at me and she's like, "Yeah, the doctor in Beirut made him stop the blood thinners." So he gave me a bunch of aspirin, baby aspirin.
Hmm.
Like, you feel better? I'm like, I'm not sure. He's like, can you lift your leg? I wasn't able to lift my legs to get into a CT scan. The pain was that severe. It's like, if you don't mind, I want to take you to a different room. I want to do some tests on you. I was like, sure. If it helps, why not? I was able to lift my legs. He got some kind of a machine like an echo. He ran around my lung. He's like, there it is. My mom, she's like, what's that? She's like, they're like shattered clots. And he looked at my mom and was like, not a lot of people survive this. They put me in the CT scan again. It was very clear I was having pulmonary embolism, PE.
Hmm.
And clots were started in my hip all the way to my lung. And I was like blaming myself. I was like, is it because I took that cigarette again? My friends, they're heavy smokers. So I started to have a cigarette. I wanted to feel young again. So I'm like,
Mm.
let me have a cigarette. And I was in severe depression at that time. After my stroke in about a couple of months, I was literally sleeping at 5 in the morning, waking up the next day at probably 2 o'clock in the afternoon, wasting my day not doing exercise, not doing anything. That was my routine for about 6 months. So I kind of like my blame myself for that. And then I saw a hematologist in Lebanon after that hospital, put me in the ICU for about 1 week. And I was monitored for about 1 week. I'm like, this is it. I'm gonna die. That pain is not still slightly going away. I was still in pain in the ICU. They couldn't do much. They could just gave me like painkillers was not an option. So I had a mask on for the oxygen to help me breathe better, make sure that the clots dissolve. And they're constantly taking blood samples. They wanted to put me on warfarin. Then doctor decided to change my medication to a different brand, which actually doesn't allow me to take blood tests constantly to check the consistency of my blood. So I stayed on that for about another couple of months, and the situation in Lebanon politically was not very good. And my brother lived here in Dallas. Right now, I'm in Texas, Dallas. So we decided to move back here to the States and probably seek better treatment and more stability and for safety reasons. It was much better than Lebanon. So I saw a hematologist and I asked him like, nobody gave me a clear answer of my stroke. So he asked me for my previous reports. I gave him everything I had. Like, that paper says factor V Leiden. You're 8 times more likely to have a stroke than any normal human being. I'm like, so it couldn't be the alcohol and smoking. Probably smoking a little bit. I'm like, I had a history of anxiety and stress. Like, that also triggers. They're all pretty much factors that could trigger the blood to clot. I thought I was going to stop blood thinners. And he's like, you have to going to stay on them for a very long time, probably the rest of your life.
Hmm.
I did not argue. I'm not in a position to argue when I have a condition like that. That's a treatment. I'll go for it.
Yeah.
And since that day, spasm couldn't reduce in my arm until today,
What kind of work
changing
were you doing?
habits.
What kind of work were you doing?
In Dubai, I was in construction.
Hmm.
I was a site coordinator for a company that does drywall. They work on churches, mosques, hotels, residency, everything related to gypsum work.
Hmm. And have you been able to go back to work since 2018?
Not until last year when because my job foot is not helping me very much. Last year, I had a friend from New Jersey came over. He's a pilot, a best friend of mine. He suggested to try to apply to a call center at his company that he works in, an aviation company based in Dallas. I applied to that position. I got accepted. I went there to see if I'm capable of work and starting my life again. I went there, and at the start it was a little tense for me because high-rise buildings and anything that's high for me, I started to develop like a vertigo. Like right after my stroke, I was able to get on an escalator, go to the movie theater on my own, do that. That was my sort of like entertainment for myself. But since last year, that was not the condition. If I go to the mall, I can't get on an escalator. I just get stiff, can't move, can't walk, can't lift my leg. Muscle spasm also in my left leg.
Do you think that's related to your anxiety, or is it something else?
It's related to the stroke because some muscles I can't control doesn't allow me to control my muscles. I can't bend my knee very much
Hmm.
at that time. So anything that's very high from a first floor looking down, it's scary. I mean, believe me, I went to see Spider-Man with my brother. The scenes when he flies from a building to the other,
Hmm.
that kind of scared me. That gave me an anxiety.
Right. Just a just a movie.
Just the movie, looking at it, it's a dimensions. It's kind of weird. I don't know why, but it
Mhm.
happened.
And
But
you've not been in that situation before the stroke. It didn't bother you previously.
no, before the stroke, I was working in Dubai in high-rising buildings.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I used to go to like the 40th floor.
Yeah.
I was living on a 23rd floor in Dubai.
Understand.
I stick my head over the balcony, no problem. But with time, which started actually a couple of months ago, I was able to find a drop foot AFO
Hmm.
that helped me with my ankle stability and walk better.
Uh-huh.
And that kind of pretty much fixed part of the problem. Because when I'm off balance, worried about my ankle twisting, that's very scary for me.
Were you able to go and work in the call center after
I
all?
was yeah, I used a walker.
Hmm.
It assists me to move around the building, inside the parking, outside the parking, and just to be mobile inside the building. That helped me to go through. I did work for 10 weeks, did not complete the training for a reason that they have. It was very hard for me to, I mean, my memory did not got affected. In fact, it got stronger. I remember very sharp things from before my stroke and during my stroke. But I also have a history with ADD.
Hmm.
I can't say that I still carry that till today. It definitely reduced. I can concentrate with no problem for a long time if something interests me. But I was working in an airline. Airline required me to memorize city codes from all over the globe, doing over 501 at least to pass the assessment. I wasn't able to do that. So that did not qualify me to move on with the career at that call center. So I left for whatever reason there is. But now I started a job about 3 weeks ago at a supermarket as a cashier. I assist people with the self-checkout machines at the supermarket. So it kind of keeps me walking around between machines and assisting people.
Hmm.
It's not a career to develop in the future, I would say, but it definitely helps with my recovery.
Yeah.
It kind of keeps my brain distracted. So I feel my arm is more relaxed when I work around after a couple of hours.
Hmm.
That's a plus for me.
Is it easy to get to from where you're living?
It's not very far. I can drive now. I started last year. Since I was seizure free for about 3 months, for 3 years, my doctor was like, "You're okay to drive."
There's something really important about being able to go back to work. I know a lot of stroke survivors, they really desperately need to go back to work for financial
Of course,
reasons.
because you're pretty much putting your life on hold when you
Yeah.
have a stroke. You have
Yeah.
no financial control. You have no mobility control. You're very limited at what you have to do.
Mm, mm. As a result of that, getting back to work really does seem to help a lot of people to boost their recovery, emotional well-being, their psychological well-being. It does a lot of things to support people. Sometimes people go back to work early and they find themselves a little bit fatigued, or they feel like they went back a little too early. Did you, when you went back for the first few days, did you notice any serious levels of fatigue, or how were you the next day?
I wouldn't say it was serious. It took me a while to adjust because my sleep cycle was very bad right after my stroke.
Hmm.
Up until this year, I was able to constantly wake up on a routine, 6 in the morning and sleep in the evening. Just like I was trying to get myself prepared in case I find a job that allows me to do what I can do at the time with a limited mobility, whether it's office or at home. So I pretty much trained myself because after the stroke, what I try to understand is you have to train your brain to do something new.
Hmm. So, how long have you been at the supermarket now?
But 3 week, 1 month, started last month in November. Sorry,
Okay.
in October. Yeah. By end of October, I started.
Okay. So it's been maybe nearly 2 months. We're nearly
Nearly
to
two
the end of
months. And
December. Yeah. Okay. That's great. I went back to work in a office, very low level admin job for about 3 years as well. So previously I was in not construction, but we have a property maintenance business, and we do a lot of painting and repairs on people's homes and in different buildings. And I couldn't go back to that for many years. But I did 3 years in a office where I was just doing, we were paying people's wages, payroll, and all that kind of stuff, and doing pricing and all sorts of different things. But we weren't, um, but it wasn't something that was very complicated to make it difficult for me to do or achieve. And that's why I chose it, because it was going to be easy. All I had to do was turn up. Then all I had to do was go home. I didn't take any work home with me. There was none of that. And for 3 years, it was a real good, easy way back into the workforce and into recovery. And it helped get my mind focusing again. It helped me have a good routine, interact with people, do all of those things. It was really beneficial. But it wasn't a long term thing. But I did it for as long as I needed to feel comfortable about the whole going back to work thing.
I mean, it's funny. Didn't meet too many people who had a stroke, and up until I started my work at the supermarket, there's a lady, associate of mine, at the cash register. She's retired. The way she said it, that she had a stroke, a brain bleed in the 90s when she was about 40 years old.
Hmm.
So if you do the math, she's not young at this
Mm.
time. And she had the stroke in her 40s. I had my stroke in early 30s. And when I look at her going on her break, the way she walks, talks, and move, it's like nothing's wrong with her.
Hmm.
So I have high hopes that pretty much get recovered as much as she did. But I don't know how massive her stroke was, but
Hmm.
mine was pretty bad.
Yeah. Where where in the head did the clock go? Do you know which part of the brain it was impacted?
I know it's on the right side because it's affecting my left arm.
Hmm.
It's pretty much on the back, but I'm not very sure to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
I do have the scan. It's all what I see is dark. Sometimes I think like there's no brain in there.
Okay, so there was a lot of shadowing on the scan.
It's a large part, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And my neurologist says since he figured out that I had the blood clot disorder, he's like, you probably had those clots since you were in high school and developed until you were at that age. Because typically, what my hematologist said that whoever carries that genetic disorder, basically they have the clot at an older age in life. probably over 60, they have that clot.
But there's a sense, there's a feeling that maybe there was older clots occurring or strokes happening when you were younger, but you just weren't aware of it?
It was possible because it's not only one clot, it's just the whole area that was developing the clots. So
Mhm. Mhm. Did you have any symptoms before that, thinking back, knowing what you know now, that was a sign that there was something happening? Any ideas, any times where you felt strange and you thought that it was nothing major, but maybe it was a stroke?
I could not tell, no. Was not aware of anything that happens. I was concentrating getting my life back in a better condition. I was seeing a counselor for a period of time. I was food binging. I had mild depression at that time. I was on antidepressant medication and stimulants as well for ADD to help with my mood and my attitude at that time.
Mm. How does ADD affect you? What does it do to people?
ADD is pretty much when someone can't sit down and concentrate on one thing, completing a task. But the way it was explained to me that it's the way that your subconscious works, it distracts you from doing something so you can have a break. I don't know the medical term for it exactly, but I had that since I was in middle school, and I was on stimulants since, and it's pretty much the medication, the stimulants, they're pretty much like injecting your body with coffee that keeps you hyped up and aware of something and gets you interested in doing thing and completing the task.
Hmm. Did you find that those stimulants work for you in that way, that they did help
At
you?
that time, yes, in high school, it did assist me with completing my job to graduate at least.
So, in the construction industry, with the plaster work that you were doing with the drywall, which is, did does ADD impact you being able to do that job properly? Do you use?
Not very much, because inside the construction, you're always distracted with sound, completing the tasks. So it did not affect me at that time.
Mhm.
It did affect me when I did study graphic design that I could not accomplish even when I was doing freelancing after I finished my college. I wasn't able to complete a project unless I was using stimulants.
Uh, so it's sitting. Is it for you sitting down tasks, doing that kind of computer work or handwritten work, that types of things that you're distracted, that you found that you were getting distracted from, not the physical tasks like ap- applying drywall or plaster onto a wall?
I wasn't working as a operator in construction. I was a site coordinator
Yeah.
or side by side with an engineer, completing tasks on time, making
Uh-huh.
sure the project finishes on time, doing quality control.
So that didn't distract you from those tasks, keeping people
No,
on
for
schedule.
that kind of job, no.
Okay, interesting. So I imagine there was a lot of paperwork involved with that, though. A lot of emails, a lot of computer work.
Very much, yeah.
At any,
Same method of statements and
yeah,
all these contracts stuff.
yeah, compliance issues, etc. You didn't have any challenges completing those tasks.
Not at all.
Uh huh.
But since that's not an option for me to do now, to work in construction
Yeah.
and for my safety, and since I'm on blood thinners and if I fall, that's considered a serious thing, which happened to me about a week ago, walking in the
Hmm.
office,
Hmm.
wanted to finish something, and I just tripped over the curb, over the sidewalk, and fell down. I was completely anxious for about a couple of days, waiting to feel that headache, which never happened because I never bumped my head into anything. Just anxiety still comes and go, but not as much as before, because I pretty much tried to train myself, and I'm very grateful that my aunt actually she introduced me to one of a life coach, which I find very important to assist me to self-develop myself, control my emotions, control my habits. You learn a lot from that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Pretty much to self-motivate yourself, and that would assist to move on in life. Because pretty much after my stroke, I carried everything before my stroke until today. My anxiety, not my depression, which I was able to get over that, which is very important because otherwise it wouldn't end for me very good or anyone.
Yeah. When you fell over, is it concerned that you'll have a bleed or something will continue to bleed, a cut or something like that?
Absolutely, because being on blood thinners, it's very hard to stop the bleeding, especially if it's severe. But great, thank God it wasn't very severe. It's just a little scratch. Blood came out. It stopped it immediately. So just a bandage, it did the job. But a
Mm-hmm.
head bump on blood thinners or a serious cut, that's when you need to see a professional or go to a care center.
Yeah.
And I constantly, like, any kind of pain I feel, I immediately go to the hospital because I don't want to assume, like when I assumed I had a stomach pain, ended up to be a stroke, another stroke on the way.
For somebody that lived outside of the United States in Dubai, uh, and then you come back to the United States, are you covered medically? Do you have insurance that covers all of that?
Well, it's a brain injury. I'm considered to have uh uh medical insurance as because I contributed with my tax pay when I was in high school. I did go to New Jersey about 20 years ago. I studied there. While I was studying, I did do a part-time job, which allowed me to contribute with the tax payment into the system. So I have Medicaid, which is a government insurance.
Okay. So you have some kind of a level of insurance and cover for your hospital visits and your medical
Yes, that
condition.
yeah, definitely. Because without that, I will not be able to survive. Medication itself, the blood thinners that I take are not very cheap.
Was it easy to go back to the United States as far as were you an American citizen? And as a result, it was an easy entry, or did you have any difficulties getting back in there?
It was very easy for me. I mean, I'm an American citizen, so I'm pretty much
Uh-huh.
coming back home. So
Okay. So that was a very
I did have a
easy.
little trip with the security guys at the airport. Because my stamp has a lot of, my American passport has a lot of stamps in Lebanon. So that's raised a lot of questions.
Uh-huh.
And since my stroke, I usually typically now when I introduce myself to people, I apologize in advance for my unfiltered mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of pick that habit up. So, and with
And
my name, doesn't make anything easier.
your name, your
On
location
the
of travel, etc. But the
yeah,
fact that you're an American citizen doesn't play some kind of a part in making life a bit easier.
it does. It
Okay.
does contribute. Yeah, it contributes to being a citizen of a country and
Yeah.
getting the benefits and treatment needed as a citizen. It's definitely a big plus.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're living now with your brother, is that right? In Texas?
My parents and my one of my siblings. I have another sibling. He lives in Canada,
Hmm.
which I go visit once a year. I have family in Canada, my
Do,
mom's family.
do you feel it's not possible for you to live on your own at the moment independently?
I believe I can. I mean, I live my life as with a one-hand person. I'm a one-handed person. I'm
Hmm.
married to my spasticity, so
Hmm.
everything I do with one hand, I can drive. Last year, I was able to get my driver's license. This year, I was able to restrict my driver's license to use uh, a steering knob with a digital turn signals
Hmm.
provided by the state government. That they
Oh,
assist me with that for Texas workforce. They assist people with disability to get back to employment and get into the as a normal life. Which is a very good program over here.
hmm.
And they started anything related to getting me back to employment, they will assist me with. driving is one of the things that's essential for me to go to work. So restricting my driver license allows me to add an attachment to modify my vehicle so I can drive safely. Because driving on the highway, it's a little stress for me. Not being able to give a turn signal at a last minute, it's pretty dangerous. And Texas highways are pretty high speed,
Mhm.
about 85 miles an hour, some highways.
So you're driving with one hand, you can't access all of the turn signals, all of the necessary standard turn signals. So
Right.
how have they been adjusted? Did you say digitally? Is there a button that is on your steering wheel? How does that work?
You know the knob
Mm-hmm.
you attach it has a turn signals. It's a digital.
Uh-huh. Has the turn signals installed on the knobs now.
Yeah, it's German made, I believe. It's
In
called.
the in the past, they were just a knob to help people with the actual
Yeah, I have
steering wheel.
that. I have that now in my mother's vehicle because I'm still waiting for approval, and it's a process that takes time with the government work. So,
Uh-huh.
but I drive now with the steering knob. They call it suicide knob. I don't know why.
Yeah. I don't know why either. That's crazy that they call it that. So you're you can't just go and buy one and put one of those on your steering wheel. You actually have to go through a process of approval and so on.
It would be a smart way to go through a process because it's not very cheap to install that.
Uh-huh.
It's a $5,000 device basically with installation.
Is it really? Just a steering wheel knob?
Just a steering wheel knob that's digital, attach it, and my car is not brand new, so it takes a long process to do that. And usually when you restrict your driver's license here in the state of Texas or even in the United States, the advantages other than tax relief on the vehicle when you purchase, it's when you get into a car accident. If I total the car and God forbid I hit someone and they had severe damage or death, it will save me from going to jail.
Uh-huh. So the reason is a litigious reason. It's a safety first. It's to assess the situation, make sure that you're eligible. If you are eligible, then make sure that you're also covered in the event of a collision, that you're not automatically the person at fault because you've broken the
Right,
law and you've interfered with the stock standard vehicle and you've modified it.
right,
So what they want to do is make sure that you're covered in every step of the way, as well as doing it in an approved manner that's safe.
right. I would say so.
Uh huh. Okay, that makes complete sense. I like that idea. But does it take a little bit of time to get that all approved and get it over the line?
It does take quite a time. I mean, they did assist me with having driving lessons. They wanted to check if I'm physically able to get in the car and drive, and they checked my cognition, my focus on driving, and I pretty much went back to being in high school, learning how to drive from ground zero.
Uh huh.
And I did probably need that kind of lesson to actually, I learned new things driving, like accelerating on the yield sign and exiting the highway and getting into the highway. Those are things I was never aware of,
Mm-hmm.
even before my stroke.
Uh huh. Okay.
So you kind of learn new things. So that's pretty important for safety reasons. I mean, I learned driving all the way from ground zero.
So it's positive in many ways. It's giving you your independence back, but also you learnt a few things that you didn't know you needed to know. That's awesome. Um, so now that you have your independence, how has that improved your life? What has that changed for you?
Well, for a start, I'm able to go to my physicians on my own. I'm looking to start my own career. I believe I'm gonna have to go back to college. That's a good start to do. You have to start over, I believe, because for me, stroke is getting born again. It's a rebirth.
Mhm.
If you actually think about it, when you first have your stroke, your arms, the spasticity, it's all inside your body, just the same way you were born. Your brain hibernates, shuts down, so you need to start again. Retrain your brain doing new things to start with walk, talk, and think,
Mhm.
which is a struggle and it's very challenging at times, mentally, physically, and emotionally. Because adjusting to something new to you in your life, it's not easy. You start to question why this happened to me. Not, it's not very good to feel envious. This guy's healthy, I'm not.
It's definitely not good. It's understandable that sometimes you would ask yourself, why me? Or that if
Like,
only
why
I,
do I deserve it? I mean, I was having a good life. I mean,
yeah,
when I was fired from my previous job in Dubai, I started my own business.
yeah.
It wasn't going good for about a year and a half, but as soon as it starts to get better, I had the stroke.
Mm.
I mean, it's very unfair.
It is very shit. So interestingly, when I was working in my painting business, I had probably about 6 or 7 years to before the stroke while I was running that business, and maybe about 8 or 9 actually. And it was a hard slog because I started my business around just a few years before the global financial crisis. So we were only operating for a short amount of time before the global financial crisis hit. And then there was a lot of difficulty obtaining work and high quality work and well paid work. We got through that. And then I started to get my feet on the ground and I started to learn about business and started to get advice from people about how to go about business. And I remember about a week before I ended up in hospital, I landed the biggest job I've ever landed. So in 2012, we landed a job that was worth $170,000. That was a week before I ended up in hospital. And as a result of ending up in hospital, I couldn't do the job. And it, it was similar to what you're describing. You know, we worked so hard, it got to that point. I was fully, we were employing people. We were doing good business. We had good clients. We had everything that I could possibly have ever wanted from a business. And then within a week, I was in hospital and everything was gone. I had nothing. It was really difficult to get my head around that. And that would have been a very good windfall. We would have made some good profit on that. We would have created great relationships, and that would have changed the kind of work that I was doing. And just within one moment, I ended up without all of that, which is okay. I'm grateful that I'm still alive. I'm grateful that I still have my family and I've been able to recover for many years since 2012. You know, I'm nearly at the 14-year mark. So a lot of positives have come out of my recovery, but I did spend some time thinking about all the things that I had lost at the beginning. You definitely do that. You spend a little bit of time thinking about what could have been.
Funny that you mention it. I'm starting to understand that thinking about things that you lost, that's a waste of time.
Hmm.
Whether if you're a stroke patient or you had a stroke or you don't. It's about all about moving forward. So distract yourself because thinking about the past, why that happened and what
Hmm.
have I lost in that period of time, you can always make it up by putting an effort and energy on doing something better in the future.
Mm. I agree with that. But it's okay that people get a little bit shitty about the situation, especially at the beginning, because it's a big shock and you have to adjust and you have to find a new way to do yourself and to overcome all your challenges.
Absolutely.
Tell me about what do you feel is the hardest thing about stroke?
Spasticity is probably one of the hardest thing because you very much need to walk and grab things. Driving is one thing. I mean, I was a pianist. I was very an advanced level playing the piano. That's one thing I miss. A lot of things you miss, those are the hard things. Things that you do the most, you miss. Exercising, like for example, boxing, I was doing before my stroke. It was pretty much a stress relief, gets the devil out of you. I remember. punching a bag. It's fun. It's good, whether it's healthy or not. But in my condition, it doesn't matter.
You,
But if it releases stress and it helps assist with my mood and spirit and soul and mind, that's something I miss. I would say so.
you don't think it's possible for you to punch a bag now, even with one arm?
One arm, it is, but it's different with two, just to put it all in one bag. It's different.
Yeah. What's something that stroke has taught you, if anything?
Patience.
Ah,
Patience is very important. I mean, I'm not a religious person. Actually, now I am. I wasn't before my stroke up until I had my pulmonary embolism in the ICU after they gave me a shower. I'm a Muslim, so before praying, you have to perform the ablution, cleansing with water. After they gave me a shower that night in bed, I actually prayed for the first time in my life.
mm-hmm,
Now, I prayed when I was younger, probably 10 years old.
mm-hmm.
But during that time, I never prayed. I prayed that day,
Can you tell us what you prayed for?
my survival, to
Mm-hmm,
do something good in life.
mm-hmm,
I wanted to do that. And since that day, since actually right before my stroke, in about a couple of months, I started writing a dream diary. I find that very interesting. There was a dream that I had. It got stuck in my head. Couldn't forget it. So I decided to, why not write a diary and hopefully one day I write a book out of it.
mm-hmm. That's a great
And
idea.
since my stroke, I've been having dreams I'm unable to explain or interpret.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Tell me about your so you were raised as a Muslim. You understood the concept of God um, with regards to the faith that you were raised in and taught about. And then what happened, do you think, between the ages of 10 and 32? Do you feel like you just drifted away from it or you
I
didn't
drifted away.
believe it?
I was a kid being 14 years old.
Mm,
Pretty much drifted away. I couldn't understand life at that time.
mm,
There's no pressure in life. I had two jobs only, study, wake up early, go to school. That was my job up until I was pretty much 20 years old. And right after my stroke, I consider my stroke to be an affliction
mm-hmm. Why?
because it's a test for afterlife.
Mm, okay.
I mean, I don't like I don't know if you're Christian, but you have the Book of Job. You can learn a lot from that.
I'm Christian, but I'm a little bit like you were. I'm a little bit disconnected from my religion. I haven't really put a lot of time and effort into understanding all of the different
'Cause I find the Book of
gospels.
Job very interesting. I mean, in high school, we did a play, and that play was the Book of Job. It
Hmm.
was the story of Job. And for some reason, te my teacher decided that I should be the speaker of God as God, speaking to Job.
Hmm.
I wasn't very good at that.
That's
So
a
that
big.
kind of triggered after my stroke, started to remember things like back in high school. I was like, there has to be a meaning. That means something. And spirit-wise, like the dreams, for example. I don't know dreams what they are. Nobody knows what they are. Nobody can define dreams.
Mm,
But I like to believe that dreams is something when your soul leaves your body. When you sleep, you're pretty much dead. So your soul leaves your body and meets other souls, and that's how you see them.
why not?
I like to believe that. And what the interpretation is, I mean, you can interpret it your own way, or if you tell it to someone, they can interpret it their own way. It could be something positive, it could be something negative, but it could be some chemical balance in your brain. Whatever it is, there's a purpose of dreams. And that's also Joseph had that kind of miracle in religion. So,
Mm-hmm.
because I pretty much doubted my faith right after my stroke, but with time, it empowered me.
Yeah, it's a very similar story you get from a lot of stroke survivors. I understand it completely. The stroke didn't really change my relationship with religion. I think I'm still the same as religious as I was previously. But I understand that there are some important aspects to religion, especially when they're teaching things like have to have faith, to believe in a higher purpose, and to have all these other things that are associated with motivating us to continue life and to look for
It is. I
solutions instead
actually
of
also
problems.
learned something very important I'd like to share as well.
Yeah.
Because whether it's religion or not, just like the stories you see and learn from religion, if you implement all the stories of God's work into your own life, it's all about decisions. For example, the story of Adam and Eve. It's one of my favorite stories because I hear that a lot, especially in my culture. It's all Eve's fault. Actually, it's not. I don't believe it is. I mean, Eve did not slap Adam in the face and tell him, go catch that apple. It's just someone told him that's the apple over there that you're not supposed to touch. And Adam, with his own power and his own mind, with his own conscious approach that apple and touch it, that was a decision he made. So pretty much everything you do in life, it's your own decision. But the judging part, that's not someone else to judge you on what you take a decision on in life. That's the higher power that will just judge what you do,
Mm.
whether it's destiny, God, Allah, Yahweh, call it whatever you want.
Mm, mm, mm. I have this thing that I talk about that I've spoken about previously on the podcast with regards to God. Is one of the difficulties I had with religion was that when we went to church, we were told that God is external from us, so that we had to pray to God. It's like like an external being or spirit or whatever it was that wasn't within us, and we kind of had to outsource the things that we dreamed and hoped for. We had to outsource it to God, and if God didn't give us what we wanted, it was God's will. If we got what we wanted, then we had to thank God for that. And I I do I feel like God is me, is within me. No, I'm not God, of course. I'm not taking that level of responsibility for things. I'm just saying it's easier if I instead of outsource God and put God outside of me, to put God inside of me, whatever that means. I don't even know what it means, right? But when I do that, what I do is I see the question that I have, or the desire that I have, or the wish that I have. I see it as being my responsibility to make it happen, and that God, the universe, will create the resources, the path, the opportunities for the decision that I've made to fulfill that decision for me. So it's going to all come together, but mainly because I had the responsibility. And that's kind of what I got out of stroke with regards to my changing beliefs around how I go about my life and my recovery, is that now I can pray to God, so to speak, to give me something that I desire, but who I'm actually praying to is me. God is within me, and that makes me more motivated to find the solutions to get what I want. For example, the podcast doesn't exist if I didn't have a stroke. This podcast just doesn't happen. And the reason it happened is because I took responsibility with God's support and encouragement, and my own support and encouragement, all combined, to do something I've never done before, like a podcast, to try and generate this amazing thing that the old me would never have done. So it just empowers me to do crazy stuff that I think I'm not capable of doing, or afraid to do, or worried about doing. And that's been a benefit. Like, that's a really good benefit, that I had this new way to see God as, and the role that God plays in my life, or in my daily existence. Do you know? Like, it's positive, but I can't even describe it properly. You can see I don't even know what I'm on about, but that, hopefully that gives you a bit of an insight into how I how I've kind of come to terms with all of that stuff. Before the stroke, I didn't believe it was possible for me to do any of these types of things, which is strange, because I had to have the stroke to believe that it was possible to do hard things, even though it's even harder to do now because I have to deal with a brain that's been injured. I'm glad it's working out either way, for you, for me. It's good that you've been able to go down that path?
I would say it is because even like if I didn't have that stroke, probably something worse would have happened.
Yeah, that's what I
Probably
believe.
something would have happened to me at a construction site that I've seen multiple times. A
Yeah,
crane falling on the ground, so I could have been somewhere around that crane,
yeah,
or probably because I used to drink and drive as well, so that
uh-huh,
wasn't a very good thing.
uh-huh,
Thinking about it now, that's something I would never do. Put myself and someone else in danger.
mm-hmm,
Or even the alcohol abuse. Like when I asked my doctor if alcohol and smoking would put me in that kind of position, he was like, no, if you never had that blood clot disorder, if you moved on for another couple of years, I would probably had that stroke.
mm-hmm,
So maybe that was the final stroke I would have had.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
So I would say the stroke also did a good thing to me, saved
kind
me
of
from something.
it saved you from your bad habits. Yeah,
Right, I would say so.
I agree because I used to smoke and I wasn't a heavy drinker, but I used to smoke and not eat properly and not sleep properly and work too much. And the stroke interrupted all of those bad patterns and behaviors.
And also maybe that mild depression that I had, it would have developed to severe depression. I probably would have harmed myself or someone else. So
Yeah.
probably that stroke was a good thing.
So there's a lot of blessings.
It comes with a price, but it is.
That's a very important point that you make. It does come with a price. There's definitely a price to pay, but there is blessings that have emerged from that. It's good that you can focus on them from time to time and you can see the blessings.
That's probably one of the reasons why I pray, because I have to be grateful for someone,
Mm,
if not myself, for having that conscious and that power to overcome the things I need to overcome. There is something higher and bigger than that to actually thank. That's what makes me believe in God.
yeah, that's a good thing. What would you tell somebody who's listening to this podcast? Maybe they've just had a stroke, they're going through a tough time, and they're hoping that they're going to listen to this podcast and get a little bit of guidance. What would you tell somebody in that situation?
There will be a lot of things to say, but simplify it for people who already had the stroke. I would say to be very patient and believe in whatever they believe in, and to keep on hold with that faith and that belief. And if they decide that it will get better, it will get better. If they decide that this will not be good for them, it will never be good. It will get stuck on that thing because you're training your brain to keep on that threshold. It's like losing hope. It's gonna stay that way. Gonna keep lost. I mean, it's called losing hope, not hoping. When
Yeah,
you lose hope, that's it. It stays that way.
yeah, it's fixed.
It's very important to find yourself ways to motivate yourself. It's very important because if you're not motivated, it's very hard to stand up.
Abe, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. I really appreciate you reaching out and requesting to be on the show. Thank you for sharing your story and congratulations on your recovery so far.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me on that show. And I wish you and everyone listening a Merry Christmas, a Happy Holidays, and many, many blessings.
Well, thank you once again for joining us on today's episode. To get the Amazon links of where to get a copy of my book, The Unexpected Way That a Stroke Became the Best Thing That Happened, visit the show notes of this episode by going to recoveryafterstroke.com/episodes. There, you will also be able to learn more about my guests, including links to their social media, and you will also be able to download a transcript of the entire interview. Thank you to everybody who has already left a review. It means the world to me. Podcasts live and thrive because of reviews. And when you leave a review, you are helping others in need of this type of content to find it easier. And that is making a massive difference in people's recovery. Believe me, because they are contacting me every day to tell me how much they appreciate the podcast and the stories that are shared here. Now, if you haven't left a review and would like to, the best way to do it is to leave a 5-star review and a few words about what the show means to you on iTunes and Spotify. If you're watching on YouTube, please comment below the video. I love seeing the comments. I respond to all of the comments. Like the episode. That's really important to get a thumbs up. If you do appreciate the episode, share the episode to somebody who might be interested in listening to it. And subscribe to the show by hitting the notification bell and going to the platform of your choice and just following the podcast there. Now, if you're a stroke survivor with a story to share about your stroke experience, come and join me on the show. You do not have to plan for the interviews. They're not scripted. All you need to do to qualify is turn up. If you go to recoveryafterstroke.com/contact and fill out the contact forms, I will then be in touch with details about how we can get together over Zoom. If you're a researcher who wants to share the findings of a recent study, or you're looking to recruit people into studies, you may also wish to reach out. And if you have a commercial product that you would like to promote that is related to supporting stroke survivors in recovery, there is also a path for you to join me on a sponsored episode of the show. Just go to recoveryafterstroke.com/contact. Once again, fill out the form and I'll be in touch with more details. Thank you again for being here and listening. I really appreciate you. See you on the next episode.
Importantly, we present many podcasts designed to give you an insight and understanding into the experiences of other individuals. Opinions and treatment protocols discussed during any podcast are the individual's own experience, and we do not necessarily share the same opinion, nor do we recommend any treatment protocol discussed. All content on this website and any linked blog, podcast, or video material controlled this website or content is created and produced for informational purposes only and is largely based on the personal experience of Bill Gassiamis. The content is intended to complement your medical treatment and support healing. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice and should not be relied on as health advice. The information is general and may not be suitable for your personal injuries, circumstances, or health objectives. Do not use our content as a standalone resource to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease for therapeutic purposes or as a substitute for the advice of a health professional. Never delay seeking advice or disregard the advice of a medical professional, your doctor, or your rehabilitation program based on our content. If you have any questions or concerns about your health or medical condition, please seek guidance from a doctor or other medical professional. If you are experiencing a health emergency or think you might be, call 000 if in Australia, or your local emergency number immediately for emergency assistance, or go to the nearest hospital emergency department. Medical information changes constantly. While we aim to provide current, quality information in our content, we do not provide any guarantees and assume no legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, currency, or completeness of the content. If you choose to rely on any information within our content, you do so solely at your own risk. We are careful with links we provide. However, third-party links from our website are followed at your own risk, and we are not responsible for any information you find there.